Joining us now on the Oakland County MegaCast is Principal James Scrivo. Scrivo! I had to do it. I had to do it. He's the principal over at Scotch Elementary School. Thank you for being with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak.
How many hours do you work in any given week during the middle of this crazy pandemic?
Well, since March of last year, probably, I'd say on average 13-hour days, a lot, so I'd say somewhere in the realm of 40 being a regular work week, give or take lunch, probably like 70 to 80 hours a week. And then it doesn't stop, Saturday and Sunday. I know I'm calling the people that are directly over my head, my assistant superintendents, and they're picking up the phone and they're trying to problem solve with me and come up with solutions and change of directions. I mean, the big word is pivoting, right? That's a big word that came out of this. That I only used it in basketball, but now we use it in business and everything else. So you got to pivot on a moment's notice to change maybe an entire plan that you had based off of maybe the littlest item or a very large item that comes up, and you definitely got to be on your toes, and there is no off button. So I know the principals that I work with, my administration team, we are very much looking forward to a few weeks where I hope nobody even opens up their laptop.
Oh, it most definitely. And we're about to go into the holiday break. How do things look for 2021 and getting back all the kids and all the teachers into the classrooms? Is it even a possibility, or are you planning for being some type of hybrid for the rest of this year?
So obviously there's several different plans in place. West Bloomfield has been on the forefront, and you well know because you've interviewed many of us, including Mrs. Barish on several occasions, and our assistant superintendent. And we've been on the forefront with plans from March 13th of last year of how we wanted school to go, whether we were in a complete shutdown or if we did a hybrid method. I think moving back into school, and our plan is to come back the day after Martin Luther King's celebration on Monday, which would be not a celebration like we're having anyone gathering, but the day that we honor him on the 19th. And we're going to come back as a hybrid. So it'll be much like we were in the beginning of school year. And, I look around at the elementaries because that's what I'm part of, but I'm also a part of the administration team. And K-8 did a really nice job. The students, social distancing, wearing their masks, washing their hands regularly or not touching their face. And, I can speak for Scotch only, but we had no cases at that time from the beginning of school year into the week before Thanksgiving when we shut down. And, that's due in large part to the teachers, the parents, and the students for following through. Some of these things are, obviously things that we don't want to do. Nobody wants to wear a mask all day. Okay? I get that. It is very difficult. I give all credit to our first responders and our doctors and our nurses who are wearing the N95 masks all day. Because you can I dust and do like standing projects. So I felt really guilty in the beginning of this. I looked in my cupboard and I had like 15 N95 masks that you bought at Home Depot. I don't know, I think I bought them 7 years ago, right? Because they're really good for dusting because no particles get through when you're doing standing and sanding, not dusting. But you have to wear those masks and it's almost hard to breathe in them. So these are things that aren't fun, but I look at it as it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, there's people in this world that have to walk miles just to get water, right? So we're asking people to put a mask on so we can come back to some sense of normalcy. I don't think that's a big deal. I think it's something that we can overcome. And if we continue to follow the procedures and protocols that we put in place, we're going to be able to do it successfully. And we'll get the kids back in school. We'll get some sense of normalcy back, and we'll continue to grow that, obviously, with the vaccine coming out. I heard you mention that Oakland County, I think we just got an update that Oakland County just received their vaccine. So for the first time since March 13th of last year, I see some light at the end of the tunnel.
And it feels good to have some hope after all of this time.
Yeah, I think my wife would call me a pessimist. Most of our marriage, I consider myself just to be a realist. But I am trying my best in 2020 and moving into 2021 to be an optimist. And I'd like to see what comes out of all this. You know, I happened to have a checkup this morning at my doctor's. He wouldn't let me skip it, so I came in, and I looked at. They put a blood oxygen agent on my finger. And that's we never did that before. But that was easy, no touch, didn't touch me, didn't touch her, or didn't, we didn't touch hands, and we were able to get my pulse and my oxygen level without touching. That has never been used in my doctor's office before, and that's something new. Not the pulse ox that I've seen plenty of times, but to get everything you need without touching. I never thought about that being something that we would use, right? And that's just one small thing that you see coming out of this. Obviously, if you had any type of an investment in Zoom, you're doing quite well with your stocks right now. If anyone saw that coming, that would have been good to know. But there are things that are going to come out of this that are going to make us better and make us stronger. And that kind of leads into what you and I discussed we'd be talking about today. And that's student engagement, and how they react. Students aren't going to have a problem with whatever we do. They are agents of change, and they are able to adapt and overcome so much easier than adults. We're the ones complaining about wearing the mask. We're the ones complaining that our new normal isn't what we want. The kids just want to get back to school. They want to see their friends. They want to be in class and have the experiences that maybe their older siblings had or that they looked forward to having. And they're the ones that they're gonna lead us through this, believe it or not. I mean, they may be small children, but they show us the way often. And this is one of the cases where they've shown that they can be resilient.
They have been really amazing during so much of this. And it's like you said, plus, when it comes to technology, they are so much better at technology than, all of us adults. I'm always like, oh, I need a 12-year-old. I need someone to help me with this. But we're also seeing reports, though, about the kids and obesity because they are now in front of a computer screen so much more. So there are those other things that are on the backside of this that will need to be addressed as we start to navigate out of this crisis and this pandemic. But do you think some form of remote learning is going to be here from, going forward?
I do. I know in West Bloomfield we created Lakers Online. We didn't want to lose students, and we wanted to give them at least a platform where they could do online learning. And for some families, it works perfect, right? They have a crazy schedule. Both parents work. They struggled with regular school to begin with, and this gave them an avenue. It's not going to be for every family. It's not going to be for the mass majority. I don't think. I mean, let's be realistic, and I'll be honest. School is one of the most important things in my life and my family's life, right? But it also allows both parents, to go to work and have their students, their children, in a safe environment where they're getting an education. We took that away, and we let kids, a lot of parents, leaving them in front of the computer for 6 to 8 hours a day. And if you don't have the fortitude, and if you don't have the engagement and the structure to sit there in front of the computer for 6 hours, which you're going to have to show me some kids that have that. All right, because I have a 13-year-old and 15-year-old at home, and it is a struggle to make sure they're only on one device at a time and not watching Grey's Anatomy or something else on YouTube while they're in class. So everybody's struggling with it. So if there is an avenue where that might work better for a family, I do think the online version of school is here to stay. And we've had it in Michigan for several years. We just call it homeschool, right? We used to call it that, and they followed an online program. But we wanted to make it an online program that we had more control over. And that we could make sure the curriculum was what we thought kids needed. And it gives parents a nice opportunity. And I do think the online version of school, especially Lakers Online, will be here moving forward. Because even though, I said we see the light at the end of the tunnel, there will be several families who maybe have elderly parents that are living with them, or a secondary condition that they're scared. that they're fearful of if they contract a disease or if they don't get the vaccine and they contract it and then someone brings it home to them. That's a real concern for anyone with health concerns. So I think that avenue will be something that sticks around for a while. The hybrid model, as a principal who has to principal now, and it's like a made up word, I know, but principling through a computer screen is not what I signed up for, right? It's difficult. I can send messages out. I can tell my families how much I miss them and the kids most importantly. But that to me is not where my heart was, being at school, seeing the kids, greeting them, making sure they're safe, taking care of them. And it's really difficult to do from this distance.
Yeah, I worry about the kids that maybe their home is not their safe place. School was their escape. And now they're left in that environment without that watchful eye from the teacher, because I believe the reports of abuse are down like 50% across the nation, because normally it's their teacher that is the front line of that defense. And those kids, you worry about them.
I do. We have a lot of things in place. When the kids do come back to us, we are obviously hyper vigilant on how kids look, how they're acting, through the screen. There's a lot of privacy issues with when you tell kids, I need to see you, I need to see your face, because they have the right to turn the video off, and then you may not see a kid for a week. And then you have the kids that aren't even showing up. I mean, I have a list of students right here to call today to see where they've been and why they aren't showing up online. It is not a long list, and I thank everyone involved for that. But it is several students that I need to continually call on a weekly basis, and it could be for a variety of reasons. Their Wi-Fi is down, maybe a bill isn't paid, and that's where like the social worker, who's never been more important in a school setting than now, the teacher, like you said, who is usually the people. Those two individuals are the ones that call social services when there is an issue, and then principals as well, making sure we're reaching out to those kids and keeping an eye on them, a very close eye. And then, like I said in the beginning of my statement, having a plan in place for what we don't even know is going to occur, which is a difficult thing to do, obviously, but you have to have certain things set up when they do come back. I don't want to use something like post-traumatic stress syndrome, but for some, it's going to be similar to that. They're going to have issues that they want to resolve. And like you said, when they're left alone to their own devices and nobody's there to take care of them, are they eating 3 meals a day? Do they have is power coming to their house? And those are the things that concern me. And there's a lot of things in West Bloomfield School District that I'm blessed to be part of. I was listening to Miss Thompson. I don't know if I'm going to say her name right, but Miss Thompson talking from the Troy Chamber of Commerce. And, there are plenty of people like the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Club, in our case, the West Bloomfield Coalition. They reach out and they help students and families all the time. It might be simple, like Thanksgiving dinner. That's not simple, but providing Thanksgiving dinners to people, and during the holidays, maybe presents and things like that. But it's also about helping pay bills and making sure that, like she said earlier, having those resources that we're able to give people and connect people so we can solve some of the problems that we see just through a computer screen.
And as you mentioned, hopefully there are some good things that are going to come out of that. And I think one thing is going to be that digital divide, because there are families that don't have, internet access in their homes. They don't have computers. And so I do think that coming out of this is going to be a good way to address that issue going forward, because internet right now is it's an essential service, because that's how these kids are learning. And so we need to make sure that we are providing that service to every family.
I couldn't agree more. And I think roughly 10 to 15 years ago, Brooks Patterson was trying to pass the internet for Oakland County, like free Wi-Fi for Oakland County. And that has kind of dissipated, obviously. And I'm sure there's a million reasons for it. But when I remember back in the Stone Ages of the early 90s, when I started college and we didn't have a class online, we didn't have an internet. Let's just be honest. We had the black screens with white font that you could like text to the other dorm, right? And half of us didn't even know what that was. But then overnight, literally like the next semester, you had to go online to find your syllabus, and you instantly had to learn it or you were left behind. So these kids are so much more adaptable than we are because we have thrown it at them in such a fast pace. And they are, like you said, you wish you have a 13-year-old on hand to help you. I'm blessed. I have a 15 and a 13-year-old daughter and son, and I just literally when I can't figure something out, I hand my phone. You see, it's like the universal sign for help. Here, do it. And they are so adaptive. They're so quick to learn, and they're 10 times. That's why all these dangerous apps are out there, like TikTok. I know TikTok's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of good there, but there's also a lot of unedited stuff that's not so good. But they're so much faster than us to find those things and use them for good, hopefully. But you're right. You're going to see the divide, and it's our job to figure out a way to close that divide. And I think one way, just like when the internet became a part of how we were going to email, there was talk of charging to do emails like stamps, like from the U.S. Postal. And that was initially brought up and talked about. And obviously that went away because we're like, that can't be possibly followed. And I do believe Wi-Fi should be something that we give to everybody. I wish there's a way that we can do that where obviously there's going to be advertising attached to it or something. But what a great thing to have Oakland County start to think about. Is there a way that maybe the ISDs could control it and provide that service to any family who would want it?
And we have to remember too, sometimes it's just your location. You don't get a good signal in certain locations. So by addressing this issue and making it more accessible, then hopefully we can overcome this as a country. Going into 2021, that could be one of the great things that comes out of this crazy pandemic. With that, so obviously, I know you're just a principal. I don't mean just a principal, but I do live in Kegel Harbor.
I've been called worse, so don't.
No, I don't mean it like that. But I do live in Kegel Harbor, and the big debate right now about, the enrollment. Does the West Bloomfield School District need the elementary schools that they have? And it's down to basically Scotch or Roosevelt could be going away. As a principal, do you want to weigh in on that at all?
Well, this wasn't part of the topic of conversation. I see that you're from Kegel Harbor. That's interesting. Yeah, I think you'd call that a curveball. Eh? So what I will say about it, because obviously you said it comes down to Scotch and Roosevelt. So the first and foremost, any individual that sends their kid to a school, that is their second home, right? And you are going to protect that home, and you are going to fight for that home because you love it and because you've had great experience. Hopefully, you've had great experiences. And a school like Roosevelt, that when you drive by, it looks like a school, right? It looks like the schools from our history, our past, and people are passionate about that school, and it's centered in the community. You can walk to it still, and there is a lot of great attributes to that school. Now, speaking from my own personal bias, Scotch is my home, right? That was my first job. I was fresh out of college. I got hired as a 5th grade teacher. My kids were born when I was at that school. I got married when I was at that school. I became the principal of that school. I'm going to fight for that school if something, that's my second home. But again, first and foremost, though, that school is my second family. I'm a West Bloomfield employee. So the district comes first. If one of those schools was going to cost us money, which would then cost us teachers, right? My friends, my family for the last 20 years, I want to find a way to close a building and not lose my family. So there is a balance. There's an emotional balance, a fiscal balance that we had to find. And I think taking a step back, not closing something last Monday at our board meeting, right? And really diving deep or presenting the facts where there's just no choice, right? But this is the right way to move. We're down in enrollment. We don't need 5 elementaries. Here's why we need 4. I think taking a step back and looking at all of those is the best decision the board could have made. And it allows some of the emotions to come down. And now let's really dive into this. And it gives people like yourself in Kegel Harbor a chance to speak and make their voices known on maybe a larger scale than just having 3 minutes at a board meeting.
Well, I covered so many school closures in Detroit. And at the end of the day, schools are somewhat of a business. They have to operate. And if you don't have the enrollment, you have to make these hard decisions. And it was devastating for a lot of these families in the neighborhoods as well. And I think the good side, uh, no matter which school, if they do decide to close one, it doesn't matter because at least we are in stable communities here in West Bloomfield. And so something will happen with that building. It won't sit vacant and become a mecca for illegal scrappers. So, so we're not going to see that because that's so devastating when you go to Detroit and these schools are abandoned and you go in and it was like they closed the door on a Friday and just never came back, and there's still homework, there are still books in these buildings, and that is the hard part. So whichever way they have to go, at least we know the building's not going to just sit there and be illegally scrapped out. So I think that's the good thing that will come out of this debate. But it is a debate, and I do like that they took the time, the board took the time to say, let us study this, because I think coming out of this pandemic, one, we've all learned that change is going to happen. But number two, it's people are going to educate their kids differently, and enrollment could be down. And plus, you've got the balance of the budget in there on top of all of this. So sometimes we have to make these hard decisions as a community, but also as a board as well.
I couldn't agree more. And sometimes making no decision is the best decision you can make. Taking some time, looking at it, and you touched on it. I mean, our budget is based off of enrollment. So if we don't have the students, we have a smaller budget to work with. The state only gives us so much. We talked about some of the things that are going to come out of this pandemic. One of my fears and one of my pessimistic views is, what kind of hit is this economy going to take? And then we all know the trickle down effect of our economy in Michigan. It all flows downhill just like anyone else's economy. And the schools, what kind of hit are the schools going to take with per pupil funding? We were very concerned at the start of the school year what it would look like, and we received the funding that we needed to move forward. And obviously, West Bloomfield is not obviously, but we were trying to be fiscally responsible. So if it's not obvious, I hope people know that we are trying to be fiscally responsible. And that's why we're having the conversations about how efficient are our buildings running based off of enrollment. But again, it's all based off of student enrollment. So if we don't have those kids, how can we do it? So maybe even a better idea would be how do we get kids to move into our district, right? Not just school choice. That's great. And I believe any kid should come to, I want all kids to go to West Bloomfield. I sent my own there. They went to Scotch with me. I felt like I was stealing for 5 years. Not many dads get to hang out with their kids for 5 years and have the morning and afternoon drives to and from school. Those are great memories in my life. And I want everyone to have a memory like that about their elementary school and their community. And, we're constantly fighting for kids, whether it's school of choice or, we're surrounded by some very affluent neighborhoods. And those families can send their kids wherever they want, whether it's St. Mary's, Brother Rice, Catholic Central, Marion, wherever. So we're constantly trying to show that our schools can compete and stand up to anyone's. So it's an interesting business aspect of school, right? I don't like to look at it like that, but you mentioned it. And at the end of the day, it is a business, and we have to run it as efficiently as we possibly can.
Very well said. Well, with that, I always appreciate the conversation. Any big plans for the holidays, or just some sleep?
Sleep would be good. I'm pretty exhausted by the end of the day, so I've been, I don't want to say anything, knock on wood. Sleep has been good, and that obviously your health is crucial. So you mentioned obesity too. So keeping those kids active. I got my teachers have done an incredible job. And the teachers throughout West Bloomfield have done an incredibly job engaging the students, even through gym class. You would never think virtual gym class, but I watch. Everyone had videos of workouts, right, for decades, and now DVDs, and now you just stream it. But the gym teachers are doing that, and it's hilarious to get the phone calls where we were teaching someone how to throw a baseball, and they literally threw it right at their their computer screen. I'm like, you know what? I'll take care of that. I'll get a new computer out to him for that. You know, you're not. She was just demonstrating it, right? But they actually threw it right off the screen. So it is important to stay active because we are on our rear ends quite a lot more than we used to be. So I wanted to make sure I filtered or traveled back to that comment. But as far as the holidays go, you know, spending time with family, trying to do it as safely as possible. I know I haven't seen my mom and dad that much through the last, you know, they're in their early 70s, so they're a little bit more concerned about where my wife, myself, and my two children have been, and they've played travel sports, so they've been out a little bit more than some of the kids, but those are shut down now. So we're hoping to see some family over a break and have as a good as a holiday as we can, and a happy new year. Looking forward to 2021 and what it will bring.
Most definitely.
How about yourself, Roddy?
Pardon me?
How about yourself? Any big plans?
Nope. Doing exactly pretty much the same thing. Relaxing. We're really lucky though. We're right off the trail, so we can get out and enjoy that. So just going to take it easy this year, but I cannot wait for New Year's Eve and bring in 2021 and the hope that it brings with it because bye bye 2020.
Yeah, my sentiments exactly.
Well, please, happy holidays to you and your family as well, and we'll check back in with you sometime next semester. How's that sound?
That was fantastic to me. Have a great holiday, happy New Year, and thank you for having me on.